Hello and welcome to this Patch Cable Manager tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to get started with the self-hosted PCM deployment method. The self-hosted deployment method is a bit more work to set up and maintain, but it may be required in order to comply with your organization's security policy. I recommend using a new install of Linux. For this demo I've installed Ubuntu Server 18 with 1 gig of RAM, 20 gigs of disk space, and 1 CPU socket. You can use whatever Linux distro you're comfortable with and may want to assign more system resources if you plan to use PCM in a large environment. Ubuntu offers to install additional services during setup, but it's important that no other services such as Apache or MySQL be running because they conflict with the Docker containers. After the OS is installed, log in with SSH and install the latest updates using apt-get. Once the server is updated, install Docker and Docker Compose. The Patch Cable Manager installation instructions provide a link to the official Docker installation documentation. Here I'll be installing Docker Engine Community using the repository. So I'm just going to copy and paste these commands in here. Okay, that's it for the Docker Engine installation. Now I'm going to install Docker Compose. And the installation instructions don't mention it, but I always find that a reboot is necessary. After we've rebooted, we're going to use git to clone the PCM Docker deploy repository to the home directory. Once you've cloned the repository, change directory to docker deploy and run the command sudo docker compose up. It will take a minute or two for Docker to build and start the containers. It's important to leave the session alone and not exit the Docker environment, as this will also exit the containers and PCM will not run. So don't hit Control-C or Control-Z. Alright, now that all of our Docker containers are up and running, we can go ahead and close this SSH window. We won't be needing it anymore. Now you can navigate to your server by IP address or DNS name. I recommend you create a DNS record to resolve your server name to its IP address, but this is not required. The PCM repository contains a self-signed server certificate and key, so you'll most likely receive an error resulting from a mismatched certificate and server name. You can just skip through those. When you first navigate to your PCM server, you will be presented with the install page. Just enter and submit the requested information. The install section of patchcablemanager.com provides an explanation of all these fields, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at that now. All the pre-populated fields can remain their default values. The database password is set by default to what you see here on screen, unless you changed it in the Docker file. The cookie domain field can remain blank. If you've created a DNS record to resolve your server IP address, you can enter that domain name here. If not, and you're going to access your server by IP address, just leave that blank. Fill in your email address and password and click install. It will take a minute or two for the app to install. Once it's done, you'll be automatically redirected to the login page. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email and I'll be happy to help.